the Abscondo podcast. Hi, this is Mark. So I've been away from the podcast for several weeks now, and I'm sorry about that. I actually have been focused throughout the entire month of September on writing a new book and doing everything involved with that, editing and recording the audiobook and publishing it and putting it out for sale. And the book is called The Switch: How to Find Happiness and Avoid Crisis by Telling the Truth. I have a feeling this is going to be the big one, at least for me. The big one meaning that somebody actually might read it. Actually, people already are reading it, and it's doing really well so far. Just yesterday, it went live I'm doing some Facebook ads, some Instagram ads, because I have no other way to get it out there, and this message has to be out there. It's a really important message, and I feel like it's been missed by a lot of the spiritual leaders, a lot of the writers, and even some of the the more influential throughout history, the spiritual leaders, whether it's Jesus or the Buddha, even, right? The idea that awakening is really about being honest. And at first your mind is going to say, I don't know, that sounds a little bit far-fetched. Is that really all we're talking about here? Well, that's what I thought too. But over the summer, and I think I started to mention this in the previous podcast, I started to realize that, what really changed in my life? When was that moment when I feel like I started to awaken? And first of all, what do I mean by awakening? Well, what I mean by awakening is that my life became peaceful. I found inner peace, happiness. I didn't have unnecessary suffering or problems or crisis. I sort of fell into a life where there was no drama. It was just nice and peaceful, and I was connected to my being. I was connected to the wisdom of the universe, to God, if you want to call it that. But I didn't really experience it as a religious experience at all. In fact, I didn't really even start to use the word God until I read A Course in Miracles, and that was a bit of a challenge at first, because that's not how I wanted to talk about this. So, awakening doesn't have to be religious. In fact, religion very much can be against awakening, and I'm going a little bit off course here. Let me come back to the idea. So, honesty. What I found in my life is that whenever I was less than honest, whenever I believed in dishonesty or lying, let's just call it what it is. It's lying, withholding truth. And I did it, I was a liar, I did it to avoid hurting people. I did it to get what I want without having to deal with any drama or any resistance from other people who I cared about and loved. I did it to supposedly be more respected and liked in my profession. I withheld my truth. That's what I did. That's what we all do. That's what the world teaches us to do from the very youngest age in school. We learn to be a little bit less than honest and to behave a certain way that isn't quite how we feel, and to project an image that isn't exactly what we really think and feel. And we learn to do it so that we get rewarded by their teachers, so our parents give us a pat on the back, so our friends think we're cool. And this goes all the way through our lives. And we do it in our relationships. We don't tell our partners about our true sexual fantasies or needs or experiences, even, for that matter. And we withhold honesty about what we want in life, about our fears, about our hopes. I don't think I have to make an argument that people withhold honesty, right? We know that people aren't always completely telling the truth. And just as common as this state of being where we believe in dishonesty, we believe that some dishonesty has some value, just as common as that belief and that behavior is the egoic, unawakened state, because they're directly correlated. The ego believes that there's value in dishonesty because it believes in separation. It's impossible to be completely honest and open if you are in the ego. So if you're letting your ego, the unobserved mind, control your life until if you believe that your mind and your thoughts and the voice in your head is who you are, you're also going to believe that there's some value in dishonesty because you want to maintain control. You think you can manipulate reality and other people and get what you want out of life. If you're carefully deciding what to say or what not to say, what to do or what not to do, how to hide things, when to reveal things, how to reveal things. So the ego is constantly thinking about how to use dishonesty effectively. The problem is, for anyone who's tried this strategy for very long, it never works because what you're talking about is you're going against reality, right? I mean, dishonesty is an attempt to make your own reality and one that isn't necessarily true according to how the world actually is, according to how your life actually is, according to the truth. So how can we think that we can change the truth? It's like trying to take a pendulum that's natural position is resting and trying to lift it up to the left or to the right and trying to say that's its natural position. Well, that looks that way until you let go, but you can't hold on forever. And trying to maintain a dishonest life is trying to hold on to illusion. You're trying to create illusion and then hold on to it and sustain it forever. And this takes a lot of effort. Okay? That's why we suffer. That is suffering. Because you're putting all this work forward in maintaining an illusion that you think you have to maintain for some higher purpose. But what is that higher purpose? The higher purpose of anything we're doing is supposed to be that we're going to be happy in the end, right? So we think we're using dishonesty cleverly and strategically to get what we want, to be happy in the end. But how are we going to get what we want in the end if we're not even saying what it is that we want, or we're not even willing to step forward and say, hey, this is who I am and this is what I want? So it's such an insane strategy. And furthermore, not just the day-to-day, the grind of doing this, right? Not just, we're talking about, yes, in your romantic relationship, that's one of the most painful areas where everybody's doing it. Nobody's totally, completely honest about their deepest secrets, their needs, their desires, their passions, whatever it may be. You know what I'm talking about. And there's a lot of loneliness and a lot of isolation that goes on, even as you're with someone, day after day, when you're withholding the truth or the honesty. And that's a terrible feeling. Anyone who's ever done that, and I did. It's been a while, but I used to do that because I was afraid of my wife, and I couldn't turn off certain parts of who I am, so I tried to hide it with dishonesty. And that's what people do. And not just in a relationship, that's just the start of it. We all know we do it at work. I mean, we get a job, and what do you think the job is? But, you have to try to be an actor that plays a role for the company, and that's just the way it is, So you're acting all day at work, which is stressful, which makes you feel like you're failing, which makes you feel like a fraud, which makes you wonder the purpose of your life and who you are. It doesn't feel good, and most people aren't very good at it. And you feel like everyone else is doing it better than you. But everyone feels the same way, but everybody's being dishonest about how they feel about it. Okay, so fine. Then you come home and you deal, like I said, with your family situation where you might be withholding something from your partner. Okay, and then you have friends, but the friends also are projecting a false image of themselves on social media and also when you meet and talking about how wonderful their lives are, not saying anything true. So you do the same. And my point is here that we get to a point where our entire lives, for many, many people, I'd say the vast majority of people are living in such a way that they're never honest. Now, eventually the suffering, and this leads to crisis because there is a reality, right? There is a reality of the situation. Why are you meant to live? To do a certain thing that you feel pulled to do, but you're not doing it. So you eventually go crazy and cause crisis. Or you're trying to hide something terrible or something big from your spouse, and they find out and they throw you out and the marriage is over. Or at work, you're hiding something so much and you're not very good at what you do, and eventually you lose your job, right? So basically, when we withhold honesty, the experience is ongoing suffering. And the end result can only be crisis, because crisis is what happens every time that the truth comes in and bursts the bubble of illusion. There's a certain period then when the illusion falls apart and it feels terrible and it's scary, and that's what we call crisis. So without the dishonesty, there would not be the suffering, and there would certainly not be the crisis, because everything would be perfectly aligned with truth. See, this is a wonderful, wonderful breakthrough, and I'm so excited that this is what I'm going to be talking about for a very long time, because there's so much to talk about here. This is so important. The problems of the world. Are there any problems of this world that are not, has any war not been waged with lies? The destruction of the environment or corrupt politicians. I mean, what we're talking about is withholding honesty. We're not openly saying, hey, we're gonna like ruin the environment and we're going to just bring on global warming and we know it's happening. No, we're being dishonest about it and misleading people about it. Because if we were all honest about everything, it would be a very different world. We wouldn't choose to go to war. We wouldn't choose to pollute the way that we do if we knew it was happening, if we were honest about it. And the way every organization works, government, institutions, corporations, is by default they withhold honesty. That's what they do. And you sign non-disclosure agreements to make sure you never reveal anything true. So this is in this darkness of this illusion is where all this bad stuff in the world is happening. And it's happening in our lives, it's happening to us, and because of us, because we're not choosing truth. We're not choosing honesty. So it gets to such a point where so many people by age 35, 40, 45 are suffering so much, and there are some lucky few, some minority of people who decide enough. I need release. I need to escape this terrible suffering I feel, and so they turn to spirituality. They turn to Eckhart Tolle. They turn to A Course in Miracles. They turn to religion, or dozens of other wonderful spiritual books or religious ideas that you can turn to, which does provide that relief. It provides the opportunity for the inner awakening, and for a while, immediately you enter the present moment. And you are relieved, and you feel that the ease and the peace within you. But what happens is that so many, the vast majority of even the spiritually awakened people or the spiritual seekers, stop there. The inner awakening is supposed to be enough, and they're supposed to be able to, they believe, go on with their lives without changing anything about their relationships, without revealing truths, without taking chances. So you continue making all that real about your life situation. You still have no space to be who you really are. And without that space to be who you really are, you don't really continue to experience the relief that you were seeking in your spiritual awakening. And your spiritual awakening has no space to blossom, and your life isn't changing as quickly or as perfectly as it should be to align with who you are and the truth of everything in your life. So we're stopping short of a total awakening, and awakening can only be total. And so I think very few of us have had the opportunity, or have made that decision, or have been forced into a situation where you did find yourself completely honest with everyone in your life. And that's what I went through. And it's been about 4 years since I've been basically honest with everyone about everything completely. And I don't want to go into the details, but, by the way, this book is not about me. I don't even mention myself in this book. It's nothing about my life history, and I'm guilty of that in the past there's no such thing as guilt, but I did that in my past writing, where I would talk a lot about my life as examples. And I don't even mention myself, because I'm just talking about truth and honesty versus dishonesty. And I don't even need examples. It's just so obviously clear. As soon as it's stated, it's true. So it's actually written in the language of you, not me or we. It's you. And it's a very different tone. So don't get me wrong. This book is not about what I'm talking about here. And I'm doing this podcast because I am trying to provide a little bit of... And I'm sorry I'm talking fast today, because I'm so excited about this. I'm doing this podcast to try to provide a little bit of background about what I'm thinking, or the process, and what this book is, kind of how it originated. But that's not how the book reads. And by the way, you can buy the book for $15 from Abscondo.com, Abscondo.com. It's only available from a digital download link that I have on the website, and of course I'm also putting in the advertisements going out I'm not publishing it yet on Kindle or anywhere else because I just haven't found that to be the best way to get something out. So far, day one, there's a huge response, at least from my opinion. So I'm sure there'll be many more podcasts on this topic, and there's a lot more to explore here. I'm just getting the basic idea out. But the point being, there's no such thing as an awakening that you keep to yourself, because that's ego, that's separation, right? So as you awaken, you learn that you're not guilty, that the source of love is within, and if you're not guilty, right, and if nothing's wrong with you, there's no reason to hide your truths, right? So you begin to speak your truth without worrying so much about how everyone else responds. How they respond, that's their thing, right? You can't let that be the real thing. And, you don't want to hold on to someone or a situation through dishonesty because you're holding on to what's false. You're trying to cling to illusion. What you want, if you're awakened, is you want your reality to reflect your truth. So you want the situations, whether it's work or whether it's relationships, friendships, whatever, you want them to be compatible with your truth. And the only way it can be is if you're saying the truth. Otherwise, how would a person know? People go through life kind of like how we go through the sleeping dreams. We want to keep everything to ourselves and have full control over the dream. But the thing about being awake in the world, once you wake up from that dream every morning, is that now we're not alone. Your mind doesn't control all of reality. There's a bunch of minds and bodies that can clash. And that's what being alive in this dimension is all about. So when you try to withhold truth, when you're not being honest, you're kind of not allowing life to work for you. You're kind of withholding. And that's what's called fear. You're holding back, and you think life is happening to you, and you're scared of what's happening to you. So you withhold and you hold back, but you're not allowing, life to work for you. Life works for you when you state what it is that you want, what you need, what you feel. And I guess maybe that's what manifestation is, right? The secret and all that, law of attraction. That maybe it's just as simple as the fact that if you're practicing the law of attraction, you're just simply stating what you want. And when you do that, the universe conspires to make sure that you get that. But it's no mystery. You're just making it clear, and people around you and situations come to you that fit your truth. When you're withholding your truth, no one knows who you are. No one can help you. You're isolated. And that's just total faith and ego. I hope this started to make sense. I feel like I don't want to go too far on this one podcast. I really do think that it's worthwhile for you to buy the book. And I'm hesitant to even charge for it, $15. It goes right to the I Am by Info Being Foundation, and it's used for more advertising because there's no other way to get these kinds of messages out. This is such an urgent message that the world needs to hear. And I've not heard it. I'm not sure if you've heard it. I'd love to hear from you. Write me at mark.manny@abscondo.com. If you think this is nothing new, of course it's not new. Of course we're supposed to tell the truth, but we don't really believe it. And what I'm trying to say is that we can't be happy. We can't awaken without telling the truth. Wanting truth everywhere. And I'll get into what that means in the next podcast, but I think I'll leave it at that. Probably a little bit too much energy for you today. I'm a little bit excited. I wrote this book in like 10 days, edited it in a few more days, did the audiobook, did all the creative, did all this in 1 month because it was just total, I didn't do it. It came through me. It's one of these experiences where you just know, and it came so easily, already written through me. And it's not for everyone. If you're skeptical after listening to this podcast, don't even bother, right? Because you have to come with an open mind, an open heart, put the ego aside. There's nothing I do in this book trying to respect or honor the ego or humor the ego in any way. The ego is directly attacked. Right, so not everyone's ready for that. They're going to argue back, and they're not ready for change or transformation or to awaken. But this book is for anyone who does want to awaken fully, who maybe hasn't gotten there yet and is kind of struggling, or for anyone who has awakened fully but maybe wants some fresh ideas and new perspectives. I think you'd find this fascinating. And, of course, the book also talks a lot about, toward the end, it talks a lot about joining the community of people who are living in this way, or creating a community of people living in this way in total freedom. And honesty is total freedom. you're not a slave to the illusion anymore. Read the book. I'll leave it at that today. I'm not sure if I'll do a song, but maybe I'll throw in a Abscondo song here as well. And I look forward to hearing from you. And check out the book and join my next podcast. Thanks.
So set on such a narrow line. You do what the teachers say,